Okay, and here we go. Welcome everybody. Welcome to this 14th edition of CIONEXT. CIONEXT is our flagship conference. It's a flipped international virtual conference. And today we have two very exciting panels prepared for you that will both discuss how we can navigate the perfect storm. If you think of it, I mean, there's a war in Ukraine. There's a recession around the corner. There's high inflation. There's a climate crisis, energy and supply chain crisis. So we live in very, very special times. And so what we are going to discuss is how businesses cope with that, how they can navigate that storm, and then specifically how digital leaders can help their organizations to thrive and survive in these circumstances. So that's the topic of today. Now, before we get started, I have a couple of announcements to make. And the first one is one for your agenda. So for your agenda on the 9th of November, for the second time, we are going to do, together with Nash Squared, the launch of the Digital Leadership Report that is based on research that has been done among thousands of CIOs to look at what their strategies and priorities are this and next year. So if you go to our events overview, everybody can register for this event on the 9th of November. In December, we're going to run a next edition of CIONEXT on the 7th of December, that is, where we're going to talk about how digital leaders can really drive the sustainability agenda in their organization. So we're going to talk about the race to net zero, and we're building a super interesting panel discussion for that as well, and that's in collaboration with BT and Palo Alto. And then, of course, the 1st of February next year, also put that in your agendas already, we're going to have the same conference a little bit as we have today, but then with the CIOs, the Digital Leaders of the Year finalists, but then in B2B and B2C. So that's for the 1st of February. So that's three important major conferences coming up in the coming months. When I say that CIONEXT is a flipped conference, that means that everybody that you will see today, the long format videos of every top digital leader that is with us here today has already been released on CIONET.tv. So if you go there, to our website or to our YouTube channel, you can watch everyone in a long format, and they will share the business stories, their accomplishments of themselves and their teams, how they lead and organize their teams, and then more about their personality as well. So check that out. There's a lot of very, very interesting content in there. One of my favorite projects within CIONET is, of course, our CIONET cookbook, and we are working on the next edition that will come out next year in March. If you still want to have a copy of this year's edition, go to CIONET.com/cookbook, and if you're a CIONET member, you can get your free copy of that. And with that, it's now time to add Niels to our stream here. So a very warm welcome, Niels. I'm going to unmute you, or you need to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Hendrik. It's so great to be back here.
Okay. So Niels, we're going to do this moderation of this conference together. And for the last, what is it now, 10, 12 years, we've been running the European Digital Leader of the Year program together, because everybody in the panel today is a finalist, either in finance or in government, to become the European Digital Leader of the Year. Tell us a little bit again, what is this all about, and what is it that we are celebrating here?
Well, essentially, we're celebrating the accomplishments of digital leaders, and you'll remember when we first started this, we focused on chief information officers, and so the title of this event was different. It was focused on CIOs, and we realized since then, it's been what now 11 years plus, that it's no longer just the chief information officers that are digital leaders. It's the entire organization, top management team that has to show some digital leadership skills. And so what we've seen is that these top level managers, they need role models. And so that's what we try to celebrate. From every country around Europe, we get finalists who are incredibly accomplished, and we want to celebrate all of them. We then also select a top leader as judged by the jurists who are former winners of the European Digital Leader of the Year Awards to showcase the especially accomplished. But the main goal of all of this is really to showcase what great digital leadership looks like. And so I am really grateful every year to all the finalists and what they've accomplished, and the fact that now with the TV and the videos that you just highlighted, people can learn from these role models any time of the year.
Okay, super, Niels. Now, we've jumped right in, and and of course you're a very familiar face for the majority of the CIONET membership. But for those few of us who don't know yet who you are, could you in a nutshell, and in a couple of sentences, introduce yourself, please?
Sure. So I'm a research scientist at a research center at the Sloan School of Management at MIT called the Center for Information Systems Research. We refer to ourselves as MIT CISR. And I lead our research from Europe, from Madrid, on digital innovation. So the central question I look at is, how do companies generate more value faster from digital innovation?
Okay, super. And so with that, I think we have done the introduction of our conference today. By the way, this conference is live streamed on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on our website, on our app, on Twitter, and so on and so on. So we have hundreds of people that join us on Hopin as well, that are joining us on all different channels. So a very warm welcome to all of you. Sit back and relax, enjoy the show. And if you're on Hopin, you can also give us some feedback. And please introduce yourself. If you have questions during the panel, put them in there. We have people standing by to bring in the questions for the panel here with us today. So like I said, we have two panels, and we're gonna start with the panel in the finance industry. And so I'm gonna bring on screen now Johan Kestis from BNY Mellon, Axel Schell from Allianz Technology. Anna Maria Rico is in a board meeting at this moment, which is very unfortunate, so she can't be with us, but she's from AXA Italia. Slavomir Sozinski from ING Bank in Poland is with us, and Natasha Davidova from Allianz Technology in London. So let me add everybody to this stream and show all the beautiful people that we have in this panel here today. You can all unmute yourself so that you can join into discussion. And let me maybe start by saying that all of you are finalists in the European Digital Leader of the Year awards program, and something very special must be cooking at Allianz, because both in London, our UK team have selected Natasha from Allianz Technology as a finalist for this award, and our German team has selected Axel Schell and our advisory board there. So we're looking very much forward to hearing what is special at Allianz these days from all of you. So what I want to do is do a quick round of the table, and maybe Natasha, if you could unmute and do a quick introduction. So if you tell us who you are, so you obviously work for Allianz Technology. What exactly is your function there? What are you busy with? And if you would not have become a digital leader, what would have been your career? Would you be an opera singer, or what was the dream when you were much younger? Because I cannot imagine that most of us had the dream to become a CIO or a top digital leader. So Natasha, please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Hendrik, and thank you, Niels, as well, and thank you for the CIONET. I'm very honored and humbled to be part of this session and part of this event. I have global responsibility for infrastructure and information security. I'm looking after data center and cloud services, network services, digital workplace, and information security, which we in Allianz Technology provide to over 60 operating entities within Allianz Group. We have been going through a lot of transformation last year and this year. We have rolled out Office 365, WebEx, Microsoft Teams, passwordless authentication to 160,000 users. We have been going through a lot of transformation and implemented software-defined wide area network connecting over 1,700 locations globally. We also have done further consolidation of our data centers, and we have massively moved on the cloud with our partners, cloud providers with AWS and Azure. So there has been quite a lot of work which have been doing and continue to do very, very exciting work. And I also want to take the opportunity to say thank you to all of the teams within Allianz Technology who contributed massively to the digitalization and success of Allianz Group. So thank you for giving me this platform. With regards to my career and what I wanted to do when I was a child, I was originally thinking of biology, but then over time I thought maybe not. And if I didn't go to IT, I would probably be a broker. And I don't mean insurance broker, but I mean someone who is bringing different parties together, the parties which need the solution and the parties who actually have the solution. And I think what energizes me most is the actual outcome and bringing all the different parts together to get the fantastic results at the end. So that I would do something along those lines. But I think I'm
Okay,
already probably somewhat doing that as well. So thank you.
super. Thank you so much, Natasha, for that introduction. Johan, if I could invite you to introduce yourself. What are you busy with nowadays? And if you would not have been a CIO, what would have been your role? What would have been your dream when you were young?
Thank you very much, Hendrik. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. It is my pleasure. So what do I do? I care about cyber and information security at BNY Mellon. And BNY Mellon is the bank of banks. It is the custodian of approximately a quarter of all of the wealth in this world in terms of securities, real estate, and so on. And it does a lot of other things related to that. It's a truly global company. It operates in over 100 markets. And of course, a global role means that you get a perspective on many, many different markets. Now, what do I worry about today? And as Natasha explained, we all have our projects ongoing. We're moving to the cloud. We're introducing artificial intelligence. I spend a lot of my time going for custody of crypto assets, be it non-fungible tokens or some of the, let's say, more stable cryptocurrencies. And that, of course, given the advancements in technology and the new elements coming along, that keeps us very busy. But I have a big worry that supersedes that a little bit.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about worries and the crisis that's keeping us awake at night in our businesses in the moment, Johan. If you would not have become a CIO because you have a long career in digital leadership, what would you have become? What was your dream when you were
Probably a musician, either a blues pianist or leading a jazz combo or maybe a conductor. I do that as a hobby nowadays.
Okay.
And at the age of 16, there was this choice I needed to make, whether I wanted to go more the classical educational route, mathematics and engineering, or whether I wanted to devote my life to music. And I really love music. And I thought I will always love it, but will I love it when I have to do it 12 hours a day? I was not sure. I was not sure that would be the case. So I chose the safer route. I knew engineering had so many, let's say, areas and facets that I could always find an area I loved.
Okay. Thank you so much for that introduction, Johan, and welcome to the panel. Let's go to Slavomir. If you can unmute and please tell us a little bit more about yourself, your company, your position, and what was your dream when you were younger?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the invite. It's a great pleasure to be with you here today. Looking forward to have a great panel. So my name is Sławek Soszyński. I'm working at ING Poland. I'm a CIO and also the management board member. So I have two hats, obviously. One is to manage technology, all aspects of technology, starting from infrastructure, security, development, delivery, maintenance, just everything what is related to technology. But also have a second hat, which is obviously management, board management, which means that I have a responsibility to manage the bank. So slightly wider as well. As you know, the ING Poland is a part of the ING group, widely recognized brand, I would say. Poland is one of the biggest entities in the group. At the same point of time, ING Poland is definitely the biggest commercial bank in Poland. So we have a few million customers, which obviously we're happy about this. You asked me what I'm spending my time most of the time. Like, look, we're doing at this moment the largest transformation ever in the history of the bank. It's also one of the biggest digital transformation that is ongoing through the financial sector in Poland. So everyone are watching on our hands. We are the leader here. And as you know, maintaining the leadership position requires quite a lot of work. You asked what I would do if I would not be the CIO. I would say I had two choices, to be fair, because I love research, and I still keep it up, at least trying. And then I would definitely continue my university career as the quantum physicist, which is my background. And maybe on a little bit on lighter side, I would probably be a professional cooker, and running a couple of restaurants and probably some Italian or Spanish kind of cuisine. That's what I love the most. So yeah, that's me.
Very interesting. An academic career, and hospitality, restaurant career, or a CIO career, three completely different ones. And we're very happy that you choose for the third option so that you're with us here today, Slavek. Let's go to Axel. Axel, and first of all, I would like to thank you to get up so early this morning, Axel, because today you are in San Francisco, and it is, what is it there, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, Axel. What is your position? And what would you have become if you were not a CTO?
Yeah, thanks, Hendrik, and big thank you also to the CIONEXT team. And I'm honored to be here, and a pleasure to tell a bit about myself and about Allianz Technology as well. So my role is CTO in Allianz Technology, and Allianz Technology is basically the IT of the Allianz Group. So we decided to bring all IT colleagues into one team, into one company. They still sit distributed locally in the various countries, but they have one home base. They belong to Allianz Technology. And as a CTO, I'm trying to crack business problems with IT. I try to be as close as possible to the business and understand what's currently going on. And therefore, lots of projects are currently going on. We try to decommission lots of applications to simplify our infrastructure, our landscapes, our applications, whatever is possible, our product as well. So this is where IT also is very close to the business when it comes to product simplification. That also helps then to simplify the platforms and the IT below that. When I was a kid, I did play tennis a lot, and before I decided to study and do something else, I always wanted to organize a tennis tournament. So I was totally fascinated by the tennis players and the circus and people more or less coming to such a tournament, the preparation. So maybe that would have been something for me to organize one or two big tournaments in a year. Maybe that is something I still can do in later years. Let's see.
Okay, so with that, I think we have introduced everybody. So let's introduce the topic of the discussion today, Niels. Niels, we live in special times, right?
I mean, look at this list, right? And the first question for the finalists on this panel is related to this list, right? You've got all these different crises that are occurring, and unfortunately, this seems like it's going to be the new normal, right? All of this unpredictability generated by the recession, by climate change, by the energy crisis, etc. Who knows what this list will look like 6 months from now, but it'll probably be quite similar and filled with uncertainty. So we'd love to hear from you about how are these crises affecting your organization? What is the crisis that is affecting your organization the most? And can you please provide us with some examples about how it's affecting your organization? And any of you can jump in.
Okay, maybe I could start if that's fine with everyone.
Sure.
I think you're absolutely right, and we have economic impact of climate change, energy crisis in Europe, supply chain backlogs, inflation, increase in geopolitical complexity and volatility, and all those other challenges you mentioned, inflation and so on. I think I would add also cybersecurity threat as well, increased cybersecurity threat, which wasn't mentioned in the original list, but everyone is fully aware. Some of the examples how the crisis affected us. Certainly, we have seen already in the data center space. We have, but also I'm sure you see it across different industries. We have seen the energy bills, especially for data centers, going up, and us looking and thinking out of the box how we can actually reduce that. Cybersecurity also has been a big focus of ours, and we have been investing heavily in further strengthening our security posture. In addition to that, I would say that supply chain backlogs, which hit us last year, have been quite important for us to resolve, and we have been working with our major partners and suppliers, and also sometimes thinking out of the box how we can actually reduce this dependency. And we even went to breaking down our contracts to smaller but actually get the deliveries of smaller, smaller sizes of our contractual agreements for specific hardware. Just to give you a few examples. Of course, other examples are related to foreign exchange and geopolitical volatility. And we see that because we have operating entities around the world, some of the currencies have been suffering from this geopolitical volatility. And as a result, because the customers are charged in particular currencies, let's say in euros, they actually, and I talk about internal customers, they say that the technology becomes more expensive. So we need also to think how we could take that into account and find internal resources to actually help our customers and also manage our budgets. These are just some examples, but I think in terms of how basically how we're managing that as well, I suppose we will discuss that a little bit later. I think what is affecting us as well is that geopolitical situation. Also, we need to think about how we can use AI, blockchain, 5G without falling victims to geopolitically based regulatory or reputational crossfire. How we have our talents retained, reskilled, how we move away from that energy dependency, perhaps accelerating our move to the cloud, reinventing the customer engagements as we move our products online. But I think with all those crises, for me, the important point to say that we need to not to forget about technology for sustainability and the climate change, because it tends to go kind of into the back burner. But I think this is something which we need to be aware of. And of course, with the security, we need to address the enormous benefits, but also enormous risks of data, because we are very much responsible in front of our customers and society for the data our customers entrust us. So therefore, there is quite a lot. And my last maybe comment would be how the companies can, how we're dealing with that. There are short, medium term, and long term actions. In terms of short term actions, when the crisis began, or I think it kind of flew from the COVID crisis to other crises. We set up the crisis response unit. We call it Global Crisis Unit, which comprised of different experts from Allianz Group, me representing technology and cybersecurity. We had excellent experts who were representing medical perspective, operations, HR, where we could discuss and develop the mitigation strategies. Medium term, we held briefing sessions and discussions to focus on three risk areas: brand and reputation, operational risks such as cybersecurity strategy, and products and services and partnerships. And last but not least, long term. As part of long term planning, we conducted exercises to assess our response to game changing scenarios. As an example of that was CBEST exercises, which we have done with regulators, not actually to find faults, but actually find some gaps if we had them, and to learn from them and close those gaps to ensure we are prepared, and we have long-term planning as well, how to cover the issues I have just discussed. So thank you very much.
That's astounding, and it's a really wonderful, comprehensive overview of the myriad ways that all these different crises are affecting, as you say, the immediate, medium term, and longer term objectives. And I love that as part of that, you're bringing in the regulators to make sense of these and it's an impact. Who else can add to this already pretty broad list?
Yeah, maybe Slavek or Johan, in your organizations, what is the number one? Because Natasha gave a beautiful overview of, and there's many crises. But if from all of these you had to select one, Slavek, what's the one that you would say that is impacting ING or the banking industry in general the most today?
I think there's because the list of crises was we can talk about this very long, because obviously there is some very known cases which are global or regional crises that impacting selected market or all markets, right? That's important to understand. The maturity of the market is also different in different areas, so not every crisis is equal from region to region or country to country. That's key. I would say for me, the most important is at this moment is definitely kind of a side effect of COVID, war in Ukraine. It's basically great resignation and finding right talents and that's happening across Europe. And obviously, demand supply on that side is very affecting financial sector specifically, because obviously we have a great competitors like software houses, fintechs, startups, different type of companies which are trying to to take our best people, and we have a new generation on new demographics coming on the market, which has a completely different understanding and needs for the employers. And I would say the long-term crisis is definitely the biggest one amongst all of them. For me, is a climate crisis, which will affect, I don't know if my generation, I don't know, I think it's maybe not yet, or not anymore, but definitely my children, so this is something that we should definitely pick up the fight and fight very strongly for our future. And the other crises will happen. There's, obviously there is expression black swans. I don't really particularly like this one because it says it's something like it's unexpected. Of course, those events are unexpected, but they're mostly related, to our lack of understanding of how complex is the world, lack of complexity, how everything is connected now. So that's why.
Yeah.
But
So
these two are
you are in Warsaw, so you from all of us, you're closest to Ukraine. Do you see a direct impact that you're so close to the war? Could you describe that a little bit for us?
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, we were on the front line, so it's interesting to see that country occurring 3 million refugees and seeing them on the streets, seeing a different language, seeing how the kind of population and the agenda of the country completely changed before the war. And so that's kind of fascinating for me. I'm really scared that we, as the mature Europe, allowed to have a military conflict in the middle of, well, maybe not in the middle of Europe, but still in our neighborhood. I see this as a conflict of, to be fair, as a global conflict between two kind of US and China, and some of the countries supporting one side silently, and some countries are not supporting at all. So that's I think it's affecting all of us. Although if you go to West of Europe, probably some countries and nations think that it's less than others, and we have lessons in the history that it happened in a very similar scenario, right? So I'm really worried about this. I think we need to support Ukraine as much as possible. It's our future as well. I think the effect of this will be, and you can hear that from different politicians actually in Europe, that the supply chain will completely change. So are we talking about the deglobalization rather than globalization further? I think the globalization will continue, but to some extent it will be stopped, like in the points like I don't know, semiconductors production or rare materials, core engineering. And we have examples, right? Intel building a factory in Germany, right? That's important because if there will be something serious ongoing in Taiwan, and we know it's ongoing, the whole world will stop. So, right? So we need to do something about this. So some elements, I think, will be deglobalized. And we have to remember one truth, right? Those nations who has the access to the better technology, they win. So that's why technology is so important.
Absolutely, also in that domain, certainly. Axel, you wanted to share where you see the impact on the Allianz business. I mean, it's a huge organization. What was it? 160,000 people, global. So you must feel this so for you, what's the most important one?
Yeah, so it's very difficult to pick a crisis because all of them affect us in a certain way. I would also pick the geopolitical instability, and the reason why I would pick it is also it has two components. I mean, for an insurance, it's always important to understand how risks evolve and change in the future. That's one thing that is quite unpredictable. And then, of course, also lots of the markets are totally impacted by this instability. So there's actually two components. Your risk exposure changes significantly, and you, on the other side, you're a big asset manager. As an insurance, your asset management strategies also have to be adjusted. And then another reason why I would pick it is I'm quite close to this topic. I also have a family from the Ukraine living with us since April in our house. And I learned lots about other countries, about their culture, about the challenges that they have. It's a mother with 2 kids. And for them, it's not easy, but I have seen so many good developments also in Germany, people supporting those families. And we did the similar thing in Allianz. We donated over 12.5 million euros humanitarian assistance for the Ukraine. That was all employees. It was matched up by the company, but lots of employees donating. And we have also done lots of initiatives. So, for example, we have offered all our people, I mean, we have operations in the Ukraine as well as in Russia. So difficult times for us. We are getting out of the business in Russia as quickly as we can. I'm part of that demerger activity that is currently going on, and we will sell the business. But we also had lots of employees that were there, and where we just said, whoever wants to work with us, also leaving the country and is looking for IT jobs, we were open to offer them either in Poland, where we have a company that where we can employ people. And I think that was also very well appreciated by the employees, and seen that it's not only about business, it's also about the humans behind that. And those made a big difference.
Okay, super.
I was going to say that's a nice segue. And Johan, maybe you could address the implications then of all of this on how do you lead through this crisis. And we just heard from Axel a nice example of leading by example. But can you elaborate on the role of leadership in this?
Yeah, maybe to set the stage for how you lead in these type of crises, a slightly contrarian point of view. But I think at any point in time in the last 30 years, you could have said that there was a lot ongoing in the world. At any point in time, there was armed conflict. I think what we insufficiently appreciated is that we had about 10 or 15 years of the lowest interest rates in 500 years. So the question is, what is the normal? Is it the period we are leaving, or is it the new period we are entering? But that being said, I think there are a couple of very serious challenges where our leadership style should accommodate for. And the first one, I think, is the most important one, which is climate change. And the reason why it is the most important one, and will be for many years, is twofold, in my opinion. Number one, nobody can solve it on their own. We really need everybody to work together to solve it. And the second reason is it will take years of concerted effort to at least contain it. So that is, in my opinion, of a different size than inflation or an armed conflict. And I don't mean to minimize it. I think it is pretty tough, but it can also probably, at least the violence can be stopped, let's say, in a couple of months, if people want that. That's not the same with climate change. So that stands out. The second thing where you, as a leader, need to be very careful about is the deglobalisation, because it will force you to retreat if you are a global player like we are, or to deal with additional complexity of that. And I think that is a very important thing. Now, how to be a good leader in all that? I believe the qualities of a good leader are probably constant over time. But, you know, exceptional circumstances create exceptional leaders. And I think, excuse me, I think what is very important is that when faced with particular difficulties of global or local nature, we should fall back on what I call the basic of leaderships. And the basics of leadership for me have to do with humbleness, authenticity, courage. And if you just need more of those as the times may be getting more difficult. But the fundamental posture as a leader will not change. You will have to care about other people. You will have to dare to bring bad news. You will have to have the courage to stand up for your convictions. The topic may change. The subject or the scope of the subject may change, but the qualities are probably pretty constant.
Thank you. Who else can elaborate on the role of digital leaders in helping your respective organizations navigate these crises?
Maybe I could step in very briefly
Please.
here. I think in today's world, the ever-changing reality, the leader needs to be able to toggle the daily management and lead the transformation at the same time. And I think the leader needs to act fast, but also sometimes stop and think. And it's like that book, Thinking Fast and Slow, because sometimes if you are doing too many changes and all they happen at once, that might not be really efficient. And for me, I don't know whether any of you, if you followed my blogs and LinkedIn, I published a few ideas of what leadership means in such times. And for me, it has the abbreviation of GREAT. And I will start with the last letter. Letter T is trust, because building and maintaining trust plays a really crucial part in the role of today's leaders. And I think the transforming the organization requires the leader to be a bit like trapeze artist. A trapeze artist must trust other team members and vice versa while flying through the air, and recognize the moment for letting go of the old pair of hands and reach out to another trapeze. And being up in the air and completely ungrounded sometimes must feel comfortable to them. And that's similar to what digital leaders leading the digital transformation might experience at times, the courage to feel comfortable in being uncomfortable. And the other letters in GREAT, G stands for grace. It's not about you, it's about the team. R stands for the resilience. E stands for emotional intelligence, which was mentioned already. And A stands for acknowledgement of the successes your team has achieved. And T, as I said, it's about trust. And I think also the role of digital leaders here, the last but not least, the CIONET role is here really important, because CIONET provides us the platform for digital leaders to have the ability to share our knowledge, and to strengthen us jointly across various industries. So I would really again thank you for giving us that platform. Thanks a lot.
Maybe if
Good
I may,
here. Thank you so much for the compliments. Sorry to interrupt you, Jon. Please go ahead.
If I may add one thing, which is specific for chief technology officers and CIOs. It still happens to me that I deal with my colleagues, executives, and they don't really understand technology, or they don't really understand cyber. And cyber is pretty pervasive. It's like getting sick. You don't see it. Yeah, you get contaminated and you don't see it. And one of the things we have to do as a profession almost, it is to be able to demystify. And I'd like to come back to the point of Natasha, to inspire the trust that we understand what technology does, cannot do, and also the risks, by the way, associated with it. And that therefore they should continue down the path of increasing usage of technology for automation and better customer experience and so on. And that's quite specific to our profession. I think that, many executives still say, oh my God, I really don't know what's going on in the technology side of the house.
Okay. What I suggest...
May I, Henrik, one more thing?
Yeah, please.
This is all good, like what Johan and Natasha said. The one thing I would add from my experience, at least, is that you as the leader, first of all, you need to believe in your mission, vision, or strategy that you're presenting, because there's nothing worse than you put something on paper, communicate to the teams, and then you move away from that, right? So leader needs to be in the change that is happening. Is it a crisis? Is it a regular project? Is it something else? And you fail and, you know, have a success with your team. That's the key. And I've seen so many examples of leaders who are just, you know, communicating the change and thinking that it's magically will happen. And then they surprised a year later, nothing happened, right? So leader needs to be in that change, and crisis will happen. For me, you know, the only, I'll give you the example. If we look on the SP 500, right? Average time when the companies are staying on that stock exchange is 7 years now. So in our lifetime, that index potentially will change the life of all the companies that are there, right? And that's very important, because I think the only factor measuring today is the speed of how fast you can introduce the change, because then you can either to align to the change that's happening, is it a crisis or need, or you die. That's simple like that.
Okay. We have a question from the from one of the people in the audience, and that's around boldness. I mean, if we live in a period of crisis, sometimes we have to take very unpopular and harsh decisions, maybe as well. So Axel or somebody else in the panel here, do we have to be more bold in the times of crisis as a leader than normally?
I think some of the decisions are maybe a bit more difficult because there is more stakes in the game. So if you have calm and easy days, I mean, the question is how often does it really happen? But if you don't have multiple crises running at the same time, I think you have more time also to think about certain activities. I'm fully with Slavek that it's no longer about the big ones eat the small ones. It's the fast ones that eat the slow ones. So it really changed a lot. I totally agree. And the crisis is an accelerator, and that means you have less time for certain activities. You need to make bold decisions. I mean, sometimes to get out of a market is a decision that can take you half a year, and you do lots of analysis, and maybe it's a good thing, maybe not, I don't know. But in crisis, you simply do not have that choice. You don't have that half of a year of a discussion. You need to be a lot faster. So our decision to exit the business in Russia was not something that took half a year to prepare and to get into those kind of activities. I think also crises are accelerators for certain things and activities. If you have always planned to do certain activities in a crisis, it's easier to do that because people much better understand that radical moves and bold moves are needed. So I don't know if you need more bold moves, but I would say it's easier to execute a bold move in a crisis. If everything runs smoothly, people just don't understand, why are you changing now something?
I want to maybe address the next topic of the discussion, and that is, we've discussed the impact of the crisis on our business, and certainly top priorities are climate, are the war, and the consequences of all that, and we discussed leadership and what kind of leadership that we need in this confluence of crises. But let's return a little bit to our day-to-day business on IT. What's the impact on Axel on your business today, on your IT business? I mean, you run a huge organization. What is it, 15,000 people in IT? So huge budgets. So how is your budget going to change and in the next year? Can you talk about that?
Yes. So I think first of all, the goal is still the same. We have to build and run a modern and resilient IT. There is no change needed, and that's what our goal before the crisis, and that will also be after the crisis. When it comes to money, it's more or less the same. I don't see us spending more money because of the crisis. Yes, there is of course inflation and stuff like that, but on the other hand, you also try to generate some kind of efficiencies, which is a standard activity for an IT person, also to see what you can do in order to improve. So I would say that's a relatively a stable budget. I think the key challenge is, and that's also totally independent of the crisis, how can you best spend the money? Sometimes I'm a bit in favor of having a shortage of money because it makes you just fight for the right activities. If you have too much money, you spend too much. You maybe do certain activities that are not 100% necessary. So it gives you kind of a natural push to make really sure you do the right things. So I expect that during a crisis, that pressure comes and people have more activities that are maybe needed, but you don't want to spend more, and that makes you, from my point of view, in a certain way, of course, also more efficient. And the key thing of efficiency is what kind of business value can you generate as IT with the money you spend for IT? Can you justify to the business that you need that money? Can you explain what you will do with the money? Those are, from my point of view, key considerations. I would think about.
Could you be a bit more specific? I mean, on your priorities, because it's all about priority. I mean,
Yes.
we have limited budget, of course, inflation is not helping that at all. So are your priorities for 2023 changing compared to how you look at them in the beginning of this year?
So the answer is no. I think the what we still continue to do is, first of all, is run the business. So keep the lights on, no change needed and necessary. As I said, modern resilient IT is there. Then when it comes to change the money you spend in order to make a business successful, yes, you shift maybe some priorities in terms of business, but from an IT perspective, I don't see that. We still have our standard goals: decommissioning, customer centricity, simplicity. So those stay the same, and we truly believe in them independent of the crisis. We also believe in which markets we want to enter, and where we want to grow in terms of customer experience, the generation, automation. All of those activities are more or less the same. So it's, I think, doing the things with a super clear and even maybe more clear focus on the benefit.
Okay, very clear. Johan, I mean, if I could come to you, and then we'll go to Natasha and Slavik as well. I mean, BNY Mellon, huge international organization as well. What do you see impact on both budgets and your priorities? Are your priorities for next year changing compared to the priorities of this year?
So I think Axel said it quite well. Our long-term business goals will not change. And therefore, what we need to do from an IT perspective for the longer term will not change. At the same time, in terms of recession or lack of economic growth, it's hard to expect that your budgets will go up. And every one of us knows the feeling there is always more demand than there is supply, or that there is budget. However, I think our industry suffers from the fundamental asymmetry. It is easier to get new software or hardware or solutions in than to decommission old and existing ones. And there's a couple of reasons for that. For example, in a system with multiple users, it's the last one that turns out the light. And so there's always one who says, oh no, I cannot move because of this. But I think as an industry, and perhaps also outside the financial industry, we have created a huge opportunity for cleaning up our house, meaning unused software, underutilized hardware, excessive backup storage. There is a lot of efficiencies that we can get out of trimming our IT, let's call it landscape, and use the proceeds of that trimming to basically invest in new business needs. That being said, the inflation is also hitting our suppliers. So I think we need to warm ourselves up for some, how should I say, heartfelt conversations with our suppliers, who will probably come to us and say, ooh, me being hit by inflation, poor man, multiple no longer 30, only 25. And we need to be able to cater for that as well. So it will be a tough discussion, but clearly, I mean, budgets are not going up. We will need to find these efficiencies, which probably have crept in our infrastructures in the last years.
And Johan, I mean, you're in cyber, and you're a specialist in that, and you're heading that. and seeing that we're in a cyber crisis and cyber war in certain aspects, I mean, that budget must increase, no?
Well, the same is also true for cyber. We have quite a wide array of tools to help us getting better in cyber. And at the same time, the human factor, as everybody in cyber knows, remains the weakest link. So how can we increase the efficiency of our defenses? Of course, we will invest in cyber. We will stay ahead of the threats to our utmost degrees. We have regulatory-driven pen tests, like Natasha was explaining. We have those as well, and they are continuous learning opportunities. But you can always do better with the budget that you have as well. And I think also there we have not seen the end of the improvement potential. But for sure, cyber is a top point of attention and will remain so. But that's not an excuse to create waste.
Okay. Natasha, you want to chip in on that and add to
Yes,
that?
just wanted to mention that to what Axel was saying, that our strategy with bold moves has not changed. However, we also, what I see and what I experienced, that during the pandemic crisis, we created a new hybrid working environment. And from infrastructure, it also means that alongside providing the communication and collaboration platforms, we also need to educate and to support our users more. The scope of IT support is broadening and increasing. It's a customer relationship management aspect, communication skills, storytelling skills as well, reskilling and upskilling our employees as well. I would also say that we also look much more closely how we can leverage IT talent pools in global organization as well. And I think, of course, when we talk about what, we need to talk about how. When we talk about what, and Axel mentioned that already, it's about further reducing complexity, reducing legacy and decommissioning, but also looking at developing and accelerating our journey to the cloud, using AI and cognitive automation, using more innovation to be more productive, more efficient. Also, I would like to mention that a lot of us are currently on the agile organization journey, and what it means the customer focus and product, not project focus anymore, and decentralized decision making. So it's adapting into this new environment as well. And when we talk about what, we talk about cloud, automation, agile, continuous learning. And then we talk about how. It's about trust again, it's about ownership, it's about personal growth for us as leaders and our teams. It's about further strength, mentality, and customer value as the main focus.
Okay. Thank you so much, Natasha. Slavik, what's happening with the budgets and especially the priority at ING?
Look, nowadays banks are the software companies with the banking license. And I have a huge privilege to work in the company where executive of that company understand that very well. So we continue invest in our technology as much as we can, even by cutting some of the money in other areas, which is, they cannot be great at message for me as the digital leader, right? That's one. From the budget perspective, I mentioned at the beginning that we do the one of the largest transformation, and obviously transformation needs fuel. That fuel is being supplied, which is great news. Of course, it doesn't mean what Johan said, that with wasting money. There is a space, and we should do, and we do optimize and self-funding some of the initiatives to subsidize of some of the factors that are coming, right? Increasing inflation, increasing prices, talent changes, talent increases, the different things that are happening. Priorities long term didn't change. crisis for me, every single crisis for me is to some extent opportunity, but at the same point of time is also a test for organization how well and resilient we are from that perspective. So that's important. Short-term goals, I would say, or mid-term goals, sometimes changing because they obviously unpredictable. Like war in Ukraine, we know that it was unpredictable, right? We had to adjust. And certain things on technology side also changed because of that. But long term, it's not impacted. Budget is growing. Long term, we do our stuff as we should do. Short term, we do adjustments. Yes.
Okay.
And it's curious. I'm finding when I study, especially financial services, echoing a lot of what you just said, all of you, there's a greater focus on reprioritizing based on impact, and that's impact relative to shifts in strategy, especially as you just said, with the short-term and medium-term objectives, not necessarily the longer-term objectives. And then increasingly, the scarce resource to reprioritize is less and less money and more about people. Trying to ensure that the people that the company has are going to those initiatives with the greatest impact, given the latest strategy shifts. And so I'm hearing that also. I don't know if that resonates with any of your experiences. Natasha, you mentioned the importance of really focusing on people and really building up that resource. I don't know if any others are also helping navigate this crisis by helping to reallocate people rather than just money.
Well, if I may, probably I should mention, because ING is very well known for its agile practices. It's a true DevOps culture and deployment as well. So that's actually, for me, to be fair, it's a given, because we actually realigning resources to the purpose that is creating the impact, the most meaningful impact, and that's the core. Obviously, the competence of the people needs to be always adjusted. So we have a huge programs around training building up new competences, and that's important. We have to remember that's the key for as the technologies for us to train our people on different aspects, and that should never be stopped. That should be continuous learning, never stop learning, because you're going back then, including ourselves, right? We need to have a space to learn ourselves as well, because that's good if your leader doesn't know what's happening.
Okay. We've got 6 minutes left in this panel only. Time flies when you're having fun. So I want to give 1 minute to all of you, including you, Neil. So, I mean, we're in this very, very special times. What is your personal, if you take your crystal ball, where do you see this going? Are we going back to the good old days when we had no inflation and life was good and there was a stable and there was and so on and so on and so on? Where do you see us going in a couple of years? Who wants to take this first? 1 minute. Okay, Chinese volunteer. Axel, why don't you go first?
Yes, happy to do so. So I think that the last 2 years accelerated or also reverted lots of the customer and business habits. And I think a lot of things will stay. They will not go away. I see a couple of things happening. So a bit of a provocative statement as well. I think robots will be our colleagues in the future. They will be next to us. I see a new area of medicine coming. So the shift of the world of medicine and also how we work with medicine. Then I would say that we unfortunately will run into an area of more inequality. I think that's a huge challenge for all of the governments to deal with that. Every government will have that challenge and they need to find a solution for that. I see energy prices will be higher in the future. They will not go down. Whatever we have experienced will stay like that. And those are the key challenges I foresee, and this is how the future will look like.
Okay. A pretty dark picture, I would say. So
Maybe I could lighten it a little bit.
prices stay high like that. But anyway, Natasha, you want to 1 minute more?
Yes, I think I foresee platforms and ecosystems becoming stronger. I see actually economic empowerment, and I mean empowerment will become more, in terms of more accessible to those ignored by traditional financial institutions. I can see it happening already. I think AI and machine learning will become ubiquitous. Web3 will revolutionize the way we do commerce. I think there will be focus on human experience. And by that, I mean, when we talk about metaverse, it's not technological, it's actually sociological shift for me, at the moment at least. Supply chains will become more intelligent. AI hopefully will help us to solve the food crisis in terms of the production and distribution, and education for our kids will become hopefully more practical, more experience-based, and using internet resources and experts available to move us all forward. So that's my view.
Okay. Thank you, Natasha. Johan, what's your
Well,
picture of the future?
let me take it in two very clear images. I think there will be a revival of the local pub and the local shop. And I mean by that people, consumers, could sort of get a little bit saturated with sharing digital content and may want to go back into the community again and have a beer with their neighbors or go shopping, and value that experience. On the risk side, one of my biggest nightmare is a major hack on AWS or Azure. I believe that would be worse than something like Fukushima in terms of impact on the world economy. And maybe it's something we need to go through to get to the next level of resilience. Regulators are pushing us for, to have backups on the backups of the backups and to be able to run operations seamlessly in another country in seconds. And that's, by the way, is a good thing. But the world needs to sort of hit its nose against the wall before it really understands what that means. And I think there will be something around this infrastructure and its vulnerability. And then we will learn, I think, what probably is the biggest collective challenge is how to secure ourselves in terms of cyber as an ecosystem to build what Natasha is saying. So not only we are secure, but our suppliers are secure, our clients are secure, our business partners are secure. How do we make that security pervasive? Not everybody, sitting in their own house with the doors locked, but to have a safe neighborhood or a safe city. I think this will really be, in the next 2 years, some of the major things that will happen.
Okay, thank you so much, Johan. And Slavik, what's your view on the next couple of years?
Well, we locked in this couple of years, of course. And, you said that, we are living in the bad times, and, I have a completely different, it's different. Music in the past, in 80s, was better than now, right? Actually, in 20 years, we'll say something similar. So no, to be fair, I'm optimistic. I believe banking will be there. There will be new demographics upcoming, which we need to manage. Technology-wise, I think what Natasha and all my fantastic colleagues said, I think, it is, yes, concern to some extent is opportunity. For me, big question is about people. Is the Great Recession will continue? I think it will. Basically, people want freedom, and this new generations wants freedom. They don't work for companies. They don't work for brands. They work for interesting topics or interesting leaders. That's the fact, I'm afraid. Okay. Right. So this is a lot of job for us to do in the next upcoming years. But I definitely convinced it will be different and it will be interesting, and I'm looking forward.
Great. Niels, your view in 30 seconds. What's the future going to look like?
To the way I see it, based on what I'm learning from my research, companies will increasingly rely on data-driven leaders that make it safe to learn. And it's by learning, by testing and learning, that they're going to be much better at navigating all of these uncertainties and generating more value faster from a portfolio of digital innovation initiatives. So there's going to be a lot more focus on making it safe to learn rather than to fail. Okay,
great. And with that, we come to the end of this panel. And so I would like to thank all of you, Slavek, Axel, Johan, Natasha, and Niels, of course, for your contributions. We're going to kick you out of this panel now so that we can announce the winner of the European Digital Leader of the Year. So let me first remove all of you. So Niels, I think we're almost ready.
Yes.
To announce who the winner is. Can you explain us again the process that we do?
Sure. So once again, thank you to the entire jury, the selection committee. These are past winners from now over 10 years of winners, and they have reviewed the overview document and then voted by allocating 10 points across the finalists, and they can allocate them however they want, depending on how each of the finalists, of the jury members rather, decided who should deserve how many points relative to the others. And then we add them up, and that's how we get a winner from all of this.
And so it's now my pleasure to first of all announce who's the runner-up, because it's like in many years, it's always a close battle between a couple of finalists and candidates here. And so I first want to announce the runner-up, and then I will announce the winner. So the runner-up for the European Digital Leader of the Year in the finance industry is, congratulations, Sławomir Sarzyński from ING Bank Poland. Very well done, congratulations. You should be proud. And then, and we don't have the time, so we need to move forward. And so now is the time to announce the winner of this year's European Digital Leader of the Year program. And so here's some fanfare, and then we will announce who the winner is. And the winner of the European Digital Leader of the Year 2023 in the finance sector is Dr. Axel Schell of Allianz Technology. Congratulations, Axel. I'm going to bring you here on screen, but maybe Niels first, you can explain why the jury has selected Axel here in this category.
There were many, many things that stood out for the jury. I'll just highlight a few of them. Axel's approach to reducing complexity, because as he notes in the TV interview, complexity does not scale, right? And so really focusing on simplicity at scale, and the way he's done that is by first bringing in the rest of the business to get them to simplify what products to really focus on and which ones not to, what processes to focus on and which ones not to, and then having IT simplify accordingly. This is amazing for an organization that is so huge, right? 50,000 just in the IT group. Congratulations, Axel. There's a lot to learn from what you've accomplished.
Thank you. And I will, of course, pass the big thanks and the honor to the teams. I mean, it's not, as you said, the leader alone, it's the organization, the teams that deserve it. But thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Okay. Axel, so yeah, congratulations from the whole team, from the jury, from the whole community, and of course, everybody in your organization. This is quite an achievement. I would say we were all very, very much very impressed. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time. Let me do it like this. It's now time to take a small break. So we're gonna stretch our legs. We're gonna get some fresh water, and we will be back in 10 minutes for the second part of this CIONEXT conference, where we're going to discuss with 5 top finalists of the government sector how they are navigating the perfect storm. So let's move to the countdown of that. See you back.
There is no great company without a great purpose. Ours is to empower our 95 million customers to live a better life. It is for me a fundamental element. I believe that the role of a leader today is really to create a climate that allows everyone to express the best version of themselves. We have to work with continuous feedback and continuous listening. That are 2 elements, really key factors to create the right environment based on error and learn capture. What I always tell my son Ludovico is that the family is the certainty that allows us to find the right motivation at work and support also during the difficult moments.
The government created this agency to unify all the digital issues that before was independently in each department of the government. I believe that the leadership is a process in constant construction, in which there is always room for improvement and evolution. I am demanding of myself, and I like to think that I can go one step more in being a leader. I believe that any leadership must be based on closeness and human treatment. I admire other people who gave everything without asking for anything in return. Now everybody wants something in return, and in the past, older people who worked a lot, they never asking for anything in return, and this value is missing now.
MPWiK in Wrocław is one of the biggest municipal water and wastewater utilities in Poland. We have about 800 employees and operate and maintain about 5,000 kilometers of pipes. We can see continuous increase in the importance of the CIO function. 10 years ago, it was a role which provided support services. Now it is often a role which co-creates new businesses. Nowadays, it is very important to empower teams and show how our work changes the environment around us. Be a good leader and take care about your team. There is no leader's success without the team success.
VDAB is the Flemish Public Employment Service. We consider the unemployed people, we call them customers, but we also call the employers customers. And we try to find ways to combine and to match customers, unemployed people, with employers. People is always my first slide if I present stuff. People, organization. It's not technology, it's not architecture. It's important, but it's people. Every person matters. Whatever the legal relationship with that person, the person matters. Leadership is more than the person in front. It is saying we'll take care of the people and doing it. It is saying we'll have a good organization and then making sure it's happening. It is saying I want a high-performing organization and it's challenging the people who are not performing. That's leadership. It's doing what you're saying.
The department basically does strategy and advise policymakers about new technology. We also set up teams for special project, specific project for digital transformation, and this is our job, basically, to bring technology into the government environment. Digital and technology are going to be part of the core business of the administration. It's not anymore something you need, it's not a tool, it's not anymore just a cost. What really excited me is not just the technology, because the technology itself doesn't say anything, but how we manage to use that kind of technology. Usually technology is not neutral. You cannot use technology. You need some principle, and this principle usually have to drive you.
Allianz is a world-known brand. It is a major global insurance and asset management company. And Allianz Technology is an operating entity within Allianz Group, which provides this innovative technology solutions to all of the entities within the group to meet and exceed those needs. Don't be afraid to surround yourself with the experts and people who know, because you cannot know everything. Maybe I'm a good manager, but I'm not a good expert in particular technology. Don't be afraid to speak to your clients. Don't be isolated, because sometimes we are afraid to bring bad news to the clients. Really, customer focus is essential, because technical excellence without customer focus, it's just a dream, right?
ING is a well-recognized brand in Poland. It's a definitely top commercial bank. Technology is the business, it can be a business, and I think CIOs generally, they've done a fantastic job when it's coming to the developing the kind of leadership capabilities, both on the understanding the business, but also taking the technology and translating it to the business. CIOs actually can be and are equal partners to the line of business. If I look back like 10 years ago, you would probably rarely see any CIO being in the management board. Now, if you go through the management board of different banks, you probably will notice that most of them are actually in the management board. So that means something. That's a huge transformation.
BNY Mellon is the bank of banks. We fuel basically the financial sector and keep track of valuations and so on. So I think we are really a core engine of the financial industry. More people are, getting sick or not feeling well because they are not motivated. Somebody who's motivated doesn't feel the effort. Well, of course, there are limitations. If your body is physically tired, you need rest. But motivation, I think, is everything. A career is like a novel. It is written in chapters. And there are thick novels, there are thin novels, there are novels with 100 chapters, there are novels with 3 chapters. All formats work, but there's got to be a story.
I'm proud of the technology teams. We call it Allianz Technology. Actually, Allianz Technology is the IT team that provides IT services to the business globally in all of the countries. And we provide excellent user experience and industry-leading solutions for our business. If I look at the new business that we are making with our new products, roughly 95% is straight-through processing, where nobody is involved anymore. So that means if you either buy a product or you also submit a claim, 95% of that is handled without any human being involved anymore. Nothing good happens unless you do it. And that means really execution counts and not the world-best analysis. Sometimes teams fall into this analysis paralysis where they analyze things forever and we still have not implemented something. So please focus on that as well. And I'm pushing that with my leadership style to try to make sure people deliver.
My role is to promote the right use of information services and IT government-wide, so the 12 ministries and all these executional organizations, promulgating policies. And the last one is the coordination part. I need to coordinate how they comply or adhere to these policies. My personal mission is to have people develop themselves and let people shine. Ask for forgiveness and not for permission. That's my slogan. You should be a leader you want to follow yourself. That's my goal, my personal development goal. So I try to lead by example, by showing them what I do, and if that's the right thing, then they will follow.
Let me first unmute. It works much better that way. So welcome back, everybody, to this second part of the CIONEXT conference, where we will be discussing how we navigate the perfect storm with 5 top finalists of the government panel. Niels, what did we, in a nutshell, how did you digest the first panel?
It's just, for me, it's amazing how digital leadership is so critical for these organizations to navigate all of these crises, and it's affecting organizations in so many different ways. And so prioritization became a key theme in the previous panel. We'll see about this panel.
Yeah, a very, very different panel, I can imagine. I mean, we're coming from a super commercial environment to a government environment. Although several of you have commercial backgrounds as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how we can navigate the perfect storm and how government organizations have a double role. I mean, they need to help society and their countries to navigate the storm. They need to help their own organizations to help navigate the storm. And we can talk about how the IT departments, the IT organizations navigate this storm as well. But let's first start with a round of introductions. Maybe Laurens, if you want to take it first, if you can tell us who you are, what do you do, and if you would not have become the CIO of the central Dutch government, what was your dream when you were a child? Would you have become the new Johan Cruijff? What was your dream back then?
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Hendrik, for this question. And first, I'd like to thank you. I'm honored to be here in this, and it's nice to see Niels back again. I think it has been more than 10 years since we met. I think it was in Brussels. So it's very nice to be in a different position, but in this on this panel. Well, yeah. Well, the CIO central government in the Netherlands has a threefold responsibility. The first is to promote and foster and shape the right use of information services and IT within the central government, which is all ministries. We have 12 of them, and all their constituting organizational elements like the tech services, police, social security services, education, finance service, and so on. I think altogether it's about 130,000 civil servants working at central government level. The next is to promulgate this by drafting policies on cloud, lifecycle management, and so on, all topics we have in IT, and implement these policies and frameworks. And the last element is to coordinate the implementation, but also to monitor the right use of the implementation, the standards, the things we agreed upon, and report this back to Parliament and to the public, because it's a major task of the CO central government. So it's a coordinated position. This is not something I dreamt of when I was a child, of course, because I think that the job simply didn't exist. And I had it was a difficult decision on what to pursue in my life. So I end up being a military. I started in the Navy. But if you ask me where my heart lies, it is a bit like in the former panel. I would be a musician. I play piano and saxophone, and I love playing it, and now it's a hobby. But that would be maybe a possible employment if I would not pursue the military and then the IT career. So,
okay, I think we need to start thinking about creating a band with our CIO.
Maybe that's a good idea. We have a director, or Johan, and I can play a bit of piano. So maybe.
Okay. Thank you so much for that introduction. Lawrence, Piotr, if you could unmute and tell us a little bit more about yourself, your organization, and what was your dream when you were younger?
Okay, thank you, Hendrik. Hello, everyone in the front of the screens. I work in the full name of company is Miejskie Przedsiębiorstwo Wodociągów I Kanalizacji in Wrocław, in Poland. So it means a municipal water and wastewater company. So we supply water and collect sewage in a nutshell. In our company, I combine two roles, the CIO and the CIFO's function. So it means that I'm having an extremely difficult time right now, but I have two extra teams in my area. So this is PMO, Project Management Office, and Digital Excellence team. So they support me with many digital initiatives. So in recent years, we have implemented a lot of new technologies in our company, and we are probably the only company in Poland that has been awarded the Digital Excellence Award twice. So this is a local Poland CIONET community. And when COVID appeared, because previous speakers talked about that, it took us a weekend, just 1 weekend, to switch to full remote work. And current projects focus on the use of artificial intelligence in process optimization, and we implement the largest IoT network that uses LoRaWAN protocol in Poland, and it will help us to minimize water losses, because water is crucial right now. We know about that, everyone. And the question, if I wasn't on this position, I would definitely be an entrepreneur, because I love to develop new products and services that bring value to others. And I also do it in our company, but I will talk about that a little bit later, I hope.
Okay, thank you so much, Piotr, for that. Let's go to Andalusia, to Malaga, I can imagine, right? So we were in Amsterdam or in Den Haag. We went to Wrocław, and now we are in Andalusia, the beautiful south of Spain. Tell us all about yourself, your organization, and your childhood dreams.
Hendrik, thank you very much, Niels, to have the opportunity to participate in this panel. I am Raúl. I am the Managing Director of the Andalusia Digital Agency that has been created with the mission of leading the digital transformation of Andalusia. And Andalusia has more than 8.5 million inhabitants. And the regional government has competencies in areas such as education, health, justice, and social services, for example. And our main objective is to improve the provision of public services through the use of digital tools. I am telecommunications engineering from the University of Malaga. I began in the public sector in the municipal sphere. I was the managing director of the water and waste treatment companies at my city home. I also held the presidency of another company to dedicate to the management of home health. Later, I was the vice presidency of the Council Municipal IT Center. 2019, I made the leap to the regional politics, occupying the managing director of the Agriculture and Fisheries Management Agency, where I applied innovation and technology to modernize and began a transformation of the primary sector in my region. And from the last year, I was the managing director of the Digital Agency of Andalusia. And when I was a child, I want to be engineer, and if I want to choose again, I think I will repeat. I repeat it to be engineer. But as Lawrence, I would like to play the piano, as my son and my daughter too, because I think I have to do for the future. It's never. We have the. I expect I will have the opportunity to play the piano too. So I don't do it for forgotten.
Okay, thank you so much, Raul from Malaga. Jan from Brussels, I can imagine. How are you today? Please introduce yourself, VDIB, and what was the dream of small Jan 20 years ago or so?
Thank you, Hendrik. Good afternoon to everybody in the call. Good afternoon, Hendrik, CIONET. Thank you for being here. I'm honored to be part of the list of the finalists. I have a background indeed in the private sector. I'm now 4 years the Chief Information Officer of VDAB, which is the Flemish Public Employment Service. And okay, what is my role as being part of the board of VDAB? We do work every day very hard to try to get as many people to work. That's basically the core mission, and that's why we do our projects and our digitalization efforts, because digital is, of course, a cornerstone in achieving that target. So, and we'll talk about the crises later, because you know every crisis has an impact on the labor market, so we are very busy, I can assure you. One of the key aspects is indeed also the people, and focusing on the people, both on the market but also internally. Okay, now the question on what would I have become? Thinking back when I was young, and indeed it is again in the music, I would probably have very long hair, because I would be a rock drummer. I played, if you read my bio, I played on, the soap boxes, the Dash, the Dreft Ariel stuff from Procter & Gamble way back. And now I occasionally play on Roland Electronics drum. So, modernization technology.
Okay. Super. Thank you so much for rock drummer Jan for that introduction. Let's go to La Bella Pisa. Paolo De Rosa. You come across from the beautiful Italia. So, and tell us a little bit more about yourself, your role, and what was the dream of little Paolo?
Sure. Hi, Hendrik. Hi, Nils. So first of all, thank you for this. I'm very honored and pleased to be here today. So for the last 15 years, I've been building secure digital infrastructure, and since 2017, I've been working for the Italian government at the presidency of the Council of Ministers, first as a cloud expert and then as Chief Technology Officer. What we do, we basically support and advise the central government and the policymakers about IT and new technology. So we support them to make strategy and especially how to drive the digital transformation in a government environment. So for the central and local administration, we have many of them. And we have also a variable number of ministries from 23, 26. In the past, we reached 32 ministry. At the same time, we also build and manage multi-disciplinary teams dedicated to develop a digital platform and providing, digital platform for many things. So we coordinate stuff, based project that should be realized in the central and local administration. And the third thing, we monitor the execution of what we designed in the first stage. Said in other words, using a metaphor, I would say that politics usually like driving at night without lights, and what we do is trying to bring them some light to make them more comfortable driving in such condition. Then what I'm thinking to do when I was young, at least when I was a boy, most probably I would have been a scientist or researcher, because I really love trying to understand how reality works. So I would have been, I don't know, a physicist or an economist, because are the two subjects I like most. Because I'm a very curious person, and since I was young, I compulsively collect information, trying to recognize patterns. So that's my my sort of how to say activity.
Okay, super, Paolo. Niels, I'm going to hand it over to you for now, but maybe you could start with what was your dream when you were still 15 years old or 20 years old? What was Niels von Stad's big dream?
Probably I wanted to pursue filmmaking. So but behind the camera, wanted to be behind the camera, and so I that was one of my degrees. I studied filmmaking in that. Okay. But it was a little too unstable for me as a career, and now that's what I study, is how leaders navigate that instability. Which actually leads me to the first question I'd like to propose to the finalists. How is the crisis affecting your organization? And there's many to choose from. Is there one in particular that's particularly impactful? And if so, can you give us a sense of how it's affecting your group, your organization? Who wants to start?
Me? I can start, because probably each of these crises affected our organization, but the most, the water supply and wastewater sector, which I represent, is most strongly affected by the energy crisis. This is because water and wastewater treatment processes are very, very energy consuming. I counted it even yesterday, and now 60% of our variable cost is cost of energy. So only in the last 12 months, the average purchase cost of electricity increased by 60%, and gas even more than 100%. So in addition, high energy cost affected our suppliers of chemicals, which we use in our production processes. This resulted in an increase in material prices much more above inflation. So, on the other hand, the biggest challenge is the fact that since 2018, we have had a water tariffs regulator in Poland, which announced that tariffs for water and sewage collection are to remain on the same level in the future. So probably till next elections. So on the one hand, we have a huge increase in cost and inflation, reaching 20% in Poland right now, last month. And on the other hand, water prices have remained unchanged. This makes managing our business much more difficult than during previous crises.
That's amazing. Thank you. Who else can share how and which crises and how is it affecting your organization?
Shall I continue?
Sure, Lawrence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jan, he raised his hand. I just pushed the button, microphone. Well, first I want to.
I won't comment on that, Lawrence. But no.
First, I want to make a remark, because I think we call everything a crisis, but I think it is good to understand that we are living in a VUCA world already for maybe tens of years already. So I don't want to call everything a crisis. We in the Netherlands have also some specific crises on housing, for instance, on migration, nitrogen. Maybe that has to do with the environmental issues. So, and these are big issues, but I wouldn't say these are all crises. And some of these crises you mentioned also, they are connected, and they're also inflicted by ourselves, like the geopolitical situation. I wouldn't say there is a lack of energy, but we have high energy price because of the sanctions and related to the war in Ukraine. So that's the first thing. But if I look at my own environment, my own business, so to say, I think two of them are really affecting my operation. First is the IT talent, because we have really a talent, I would say, crisis. We have 3,000 vacancies in IT only at central government level, which is huge for us. So we have a big problem. It's not only us, but it's also the suppliers. And the other one, I think it's related to what Piotr said. It's related to the energy prices, because we have huge floor spaces still not being used, because as an effect of the COVID, the population and our workers, they are going to the office, but it's at most 40% which is being used. So we try to get rid of floor space, but if the energy prices are getting high and stay high, then maybe people want to go into the office instead of staying at home, because they need to pay their own energy bill. The same is on the cost level. So the costs of our IT operations, the cost of our IT suppliers are raising. We all know some examples like Oracle. They have a huge inflation on their costs as well. So that has an effect on the total cost we spend on IT. I think that's how it affects but in general, of course, I think the perception of the people and also the perception of many of our employees is that we live in very, very uncertain times, and that's the one crisis comes after another. So I think that maybe that's an overarching crisis, that we believe that we are in a constant state of crisis. If I look at the COVID period, and we have 2 years of also crisis, not only the medical side, but also the social side and economical side of it. We were in constant, high alert state, so to say, but you can't stay on high alert for 2 years. It's simply not possible. So it is more or less that we enter, I think, a new normal, and I wouldn't say that is all a crisis. There are some elements of crisis, which makes that we need to respond in a different way to this. And that's what I say. It's not only that we need a vision, we need to understand the situation, but also we need to be clear on what we can influence and what we can't influence. And then I would say for my organization and the CEO Council I'm leading, it is that we need to be agile. We need to be adaptable to this situation and not be fixed in one process that we try to influence, but all around us the world is changing. So that would be the two biggest are the talent war and the energy or energy related crisis. Yeah,
that's great. Jan, you wanted to add?
Well, I mean, I agree partially with Lawrence. Of course, there is a sequence of crises, one after the other. However, I do feel that they impact more and more the people in their wallets and in their, in their well-being. So labor, having a job, I would consider it as one of the three pillars of a healthy person: its family, its health, and its work. Labor, being socially in a social environment where labor is important. If I look at the crises, and I have some numbers here. After COVID, which was a crisis with a temporary shock effect on the labor market, but we recovered almost completely in Europe. We're back to the pre-COVID numbers. The next one was Ukraine, and Ukraine is a specific crisis in that sense, and I have Belgian numbers. We'll probably end up with about 83,000 Ukrainians in Belgium by end of the year. And most of them are female, 75%. And the key really is because the war, it looks like it's going to take longer than we all expected a few months ago. Integration, in the society is for these people really labor is important. And that's our first, let's say, big action that we need to take as VDAB, as a public employment service. Now consider this, we talk about, the war for talent or the dance on the floor, to seduce people to work for us. But the interesting part is that as we look at the numbers, we all expect a recession more or less second half of next year. The planning office of Belgium indicates that we only will have a growth of 0.05%. Other countries have similar numbers. So today we fight for people, but probably those same companies will have to lay off people, maybe second half of next year. So this is a big dilemma. Because today, numbers here, USA, 11 million vacancies. It's a record high since 69. Most vacancies ever. Germany, 850,000 vacancies. The friction on the market, meaning the number of unemployed people versus the number of vacancies, has never been so high, meaning there's not enough people. We fight for people to get them on. But then I hear, when I'm in events, I hear people saying, well, next year will be tough. Yeah, we're going to have to reduce costs. I'm going to have to let go my consultants, my external people, etc., etc. This, I think, is contradictory. Today, we fight for these people. The Great Resignation in the US is basically saying we pay more and more for those people. But if we're not smart, we let them go next year or in 2024. So I would argue, and I would plea for all the executives that are here, think twice before you start, downscaling in your people force, because you might need them in 24, 25, because it will pick up, and digital will be the new norm. If you let them go now, you're going to have to pay more money back in 2 years, because that's what our statistics say.
Raul? Raul, you're on mute.
You need to unmute at the bottom of your screen, Raul, so that we can hear you in the StreamYard. You need to unmute yourself. And maybe in the meantime, while Raul finds the unmute button, we can go to Paulo. Paulo, I muted you as well. Yeah. Fine. Good.
Okay, so thank you. I very much agree on what has been said, especially with Laurent, because all these crises are very linked to each other, and especially in the government environment, you can see all of them. I can just add another example, that is with the Ukraine. We have in cyber, we have seen a lot of activity increasing in these weeks on all our companies and also public administration. But two of them are in the very, are the most visible, especially the cost for labor and the cost in general for public administration. So the inflation is really, really affecting how public administration are going to buy and manage their own budget. Just to give you an example, we have recorded an increase of IT costs between the 10 and 20% already, where obviously in some is the inflation, but we have seen someone also some speculation on that, and it's something to take into account. And the other one I think is the most important is the shortage of talent of people in general. That in Italy is particularly relevant. We have a very dramatic situation, I would say, on real wages that are very low, and in the last 30 years they have fallen of 2.9%. Since the 90th. So this is really, really impossible to get people with IT skills in the government to work here and keep working during such kind of storm. And so for just to give you the spotlight where what we are facing is having people in the public administration to work on all the topics, on all the crises.
Okay, thank you, Paulo.
We've got Raul back.
Yes, I'm here. I see the current crisis as an opportunity to strengthen the digital sector, which has a certain independence. We don't need a continuous supply of raw materials to produce. So a supply crisis does not affect us directly as other sectors. On the other hand, we don't have a high dependence of energy that could lead the cost increase. That is a cost from the business, not for the digital sector. But we are starting to notice a talent crisis, as all the professional markets are sized to respond to the usual businesses and to novel needs. But these notable increases in business end up being accompanied in the same proportion by the incorporation of new professionals, which is causing the same professional to rotate in different companies. But in turn, this could be advantages from Andalusia, our climate, our infrastructures, our competitive costs make our region capable of attracting international talent. From here, they can work from any part of the world, and it's our obligation to take advantages of this opportunity. So we try to approach this opportunity, and we are going to collaborate with leading companies in the sector that not only for locating the headquarters here in our region, but also they are locomotives for the training of professionals, the generation of employment, and the economic growth.
Okay, so if I look at what you all said, talent is absolutely on top. So finding the right people to work in your ministries, organizations, and so on is a big challenge. So can we solve that to a certain extent with technology? So let's maybe address a technology aspect of this. Can we automate some parts of this work? Can we implement RPA? Can we implement low code, no code? How do you look at that? What percentage of this talent problem can we solve with technology? Because Raul, I know that you've set up an RPA center, so you must be convinced that this is a way, one of the ways forward, right?
Yes, we are using the RPA technology, and the first of all we did was to try to convince of the businesses that this is a very important IT solution that we are going that don't substitute the traditional businesses. We try to get them compliance of this technology because the first we did was to create a department to manage the chain, because it's important the business can understand we are technical partners, and now we are going not to substitute them. No, so we are very proud of them. We create a methodology that we are expanding in of the organization.
Okay. So what's the other panelists here? What's the vision, the feeling around from these new type of tools, Lawrence?
Well, yeah, I'd like to. I think I'm a strong believer in automation, both in the IT services. We have a lot of shared services center, and also RPA. We have pilots running with RPA. So I think it may be a part of a solution, more to say. It won't solve the whole war on talent, because it's also a mismatch. I think reacting also to what Jan said, it's not only the numbers, but you can have a lot of people available who are unemployed, but they are not the people who can fill the vacancies. You need to retrain, to re-educate, and I would say especially automation, because we have a lot of application management people still in the Netherlands, people who are not only managing but also developing applications. So if we can automate more on the application management and the IT services, but also the use of cloud, and we are a bit reluctant with cloud. I only published a cloud policy, and we sent it to Parliament August this year. So we're now making steps in the future. That will also help us in, well, freeing up people who we can train, re-educate, and become, well, do different jobs within IT, but become more maybe on the data side or on algorithms instead of doing the old stuff, IT management work.
Jan, you look a little bit skeptical.
No. Of course, technology can help, but I mean, if you talk about RPA and low code, also those people you need to find, of course, in the first place, because they're also in high demand. And you can use those technologies to automate business processes and certain, I mean, create efficiency and speed to delivery, etc. I will agree with that. But the key point is, of course, is that digitalization requires a set of skills which are in high demand and low offer, and that will not go away probably for the next 5-7 years. So the key now is to think as an organization, how can I get those people and keep them? Yeah, and we call that in VDAB, we call it inclusive talent management. You know, we spent significant money in order to really recruit people and to also keep them. And when I talk about people, I do not make a difference between if those people are on the payroll or external or freelancers or whatever. They're all people. And they all contribute to the VDAB mission. And I get a bit annoyed when I hear people saying, we're first going to remove our consultants, which might be, you know, a certain logic, but I would argue it's an old logic because those people also contribute. And by the way, I'm talking in Belgium where I have the numbers, the IT market is becoming a freelance market. So more and more people in the IT sector will be freelancers. So if your strategy is to say, well, we treat them differently because they're external, you probably have the wrong strategy. So we say inclusive talent management, everybody the same, and we, you know, nurture, love these people, and we want them to stay. My final point is, because I am now in a government and I know how things work in the private sector, because there the cost pressure is, of course, higher, and it might be more tough to safeguard those digital people. In government, when there is a crisis, you get more money to solve the crisis, typically, which is very intuitive. So I indeed get more money to solve the crisis. So I have, you could argue, well, you can talk easily, but I would challenge also in the private sector, think twice, think 3 times before you start removing digital skilled people. I would really, really love you to do that. Think very hard. Challenge your CEO. There might be other systems like cash management, like, you know, managing your procurement, other things where you can generate cash in order to, you know, manage your balance sheet and your P&L.
Okay, Niels?
I was going to ask Paolo actually for his take on this.
Yeah, so I also a strong believer in automation. So my job has been all the time trying to automate everything, but you can automate stuff that are repetitive. And then now with the AI, with all the technology we have, we can improve this as automation, but this can improve our efficiency on doing job. But at the end of the day, you still need, technology, and doing this job is about people, about having people that are able to plan, to design, to understand data, to work on data, to do analysis. And all those high-level skills are really missing right now. So the problem is not, we don't need thousands of people doing this job. We need enough people with the right skills. And this is the main issue that is not going to be solved easily in the short time. And this has a huge impact in education and the university and also in the government itself, because we need to find a way to share knowledge and prove other people to get on board on this complex, all the complexity we have to drive. And the other side of the coin is that you need not just to understand the complexity, but to reduce it, to manage it, because otherwise all the complexity we have in the government cannot be managed. And it's not even possible to think that we are going to, for example, manage thousands of administration doing the same thing just once, and without having the ability to simplify stuff. So the issue is not easy to solve in the short time.
And are these crises adding complexity in the sense of creating even more challenges to, for example, addressing the talent issues that you all highlighted? Are your budgets being affected from an IT budget point of view? Are they being affected, for example, by these crises? Maybe either directly, where there's pressures to reduce the budget, or indirectly because the costs of providing technology are going up due to supply chain and energy factors. Is that also part of the challenge that you're facing now?
Absolutely. It's part of the challenge. I would say that right now it's mainly indirect because we've seen increasing costs, but also at the same time, we need to face a way to share, to have two new tools to onboard people, so the technology there can be can help us on that. Sorry, can you repeat the question? I got distracted.
I mean, it's really more is an additional complicating factor the fact that these crises that we started off with listing are affecting your budgets.
Yes, sorry. No, the budget is not going to be affected in direct way, because, for example, today we are dealing mainly with the extra resources that we got through the National Recovery and Resilience Plan, for example, that was planned to support the member states of the union to recover the gap or the technological debt we accumulated during the pandemic, for example.
Very interesting, Paolo. Sorry to interrupt, but so I think we have some very, very different situations here, where some organizations have no budget problems, even seeing the budget increase. Piotr, if I look at you, I mean, if your energy inflation is 20%, your energy doubles in price, your raw materials double in price, and your tariffs stay the same. So as a CFO, that must be a nightmare. How do you solve that? I mean, you keep the same money in, but you need to spend so much more. So what's your magic trick to manage that?
So indeed, it is a huge challenge, but we mentioned about migration crisis from Ukraine, and for us is a chance because in Wrocław we have over 100,000 new citizens right now. Wow. So we can't change the level of tariffs, but we have a new customers. Yes, so our sales was increased, but this is the proof that in each crisis there is a chance. Yes, so this is one thing, and the second thing, I am confident about the development and of existing and new tools which we manage. That's because over the last few years we have developed, I think, quite unique ecosystem for the development of innovations and new IT tools. So maybe I will say how it's working. We start with describing, this is a standard procedure, yes? We start with describing our needs and what we want to achieve using a new technology or system. On the next step, we look for a commercial partner with which we can develop a solution together. We give our know-how, specific know-how, and they provide developers. We share copyrights between us, our company and this company. When we finish solution, then we commercialize our solutions jointly. Our software is not only for us, but it can support the entire water sector. However, we are first customer who gives credibility to a developed solution. So we already have 4 examples of successful cooperation, and over, like a public company, we sold over 20 licenses for our products, for our IT products, which we developed and created jointly. This method allows us to deliver IT tools very efficiently and cost effectively. Of course, not all, but if we developed something new. This is more about CapEx than OpEx. However, I have to revise the cost of cloud computing, which we use for advanced analytics. A strong position of dollar and rapid increase in data volume resulted in a faster increase in cost as we initially planned. So we will try to optimize the data processing methods to reduce cost, or we will consider the scenario of using of our infrastructure and open source tools for the most expensive and advanced analysis.
Okay, super. Lawrence, I wanted to ask you a special question, because what's interesting in your situation, what is it on a monthly basis? you talk with the 16 most important CIOs in the Dutch government. So you have like the perfect view of what's going on in all different ministries and other organizations in the Netherlands. If you talk to these people, what is changing in their priorities? Do you see important changes that are happening now based on everything that's going on, or is it just business as usual?
Well, it's certainly not business as usual. I think, well, last year we drafted an IT strategy on a generic level. So with all the CIOs, actually there are 18, so we have 12 ministry CIOs, but also 6 big executional organizations like defense, like police, like tech services and so on. So these are the common topics we all perceive on the skills, on the IT talent, also on the problematic legacy. We have a lot of legacy in the Netherlands, which is would cost billions to solve. But what I see that there are really differences now between the ministries. For instance, defense, they have a lot more money. You can't spend it because of the war in Ukraine. Well, also parliament and politics, they get awake and then they throw money into defense, which is billions. On the other side, we expect that there will be cost cuttings in the near future. We don't have it yet. It's a bit like, I think it was Paulo who said it, if there's a crisis, then we have much more budget. We had big support programs during COVID in the Netherlands. So we are still, well, benefiting from this. But we expect there will be cost cutting in the near future because of a recession coming up. So there are organizations who are already preparing for these new situations, and others are still, they have much more money and they don't find projects to spend it. And that's, so I think that's really interesting. And so I would say money is not the problem at this stage in the Netherlands. It's really the problem of the right people, the right talent, not only on our own side, but also the suppliers. I know many suppliers who have so good business now, they don't offer us propositions in the government because we have these procedures, these tender processes, and they can easily have a win in the private sector and much more difficult to win a tender in the public sector. So they simply don't offer. They don't put in a proposition. And so I would say it's more on this issue that we are facing problems and than on the budget side, but there are differences. The UWV, which is the Employment Service and Netherlands, which is also a big organization, they have well, big programs on lifetime education, for instance, and implementing this into all the citizens. But they also have still a huge issue on legacy. And if you ask me what is one of the other priorities, it's really on the digital resilience and on the cyber. We have a lot of problems. We have a lot of attacks. We are investing a lot of money into not only the technology side of it and the detection and recovery and so on, but also in sharing information, not only with us, but also with European partners. And that's, so we want to keep on the lights. We want to stay safe and secure. And this is something which costs money, but it is also about finding the right people and the talent. So it's a mixed image, I would say.
Very, very mixed. Jan, if we could come back to you. I mean, we need to help our organizations, but in the end, we need to help the society to become to overcome this crisis, to manage the crisis, and so on. And I know at VDAB you changed your your strategy dramatically, where before you were helping the unemployed, and now you want to help everybody who's in the society and help them find a better job. And of course, I mean, the more people are employed, the better for everybody. So can you talk a little bit about that strategy and how IT plays a role in that?
Yeah, Hendrik. We're working now, let's say, more or less 3 years on a strategy where we say we need to work with every citizen in Flanders. which is 4 or 5 million people. Historically, we worked only with the unemployed. And the whole idea behind that is that with, and I think Lauren said it, with the lifelong learning and with, the exponential change almost in how jobs evolve. Jobs come and go. New jobs, which we didn't know of 5 years ago, are now in high demand. It means that we have to start managing careers rather than just unemployed people, because if you're unemployed, we're actually too late. We failed. We have to avoid that you become unemployed. And that's quite a mind shift, because that means that we have to start working with every citizen and say, think about your career. Think about what is your next step. Because, and I always use the example of truck driver. A truck driver, if I'm 20 years and I think I can drive my whole life with a truck, well, I will be wrong, because the trucks will be autonomous driving in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. So we have to know that and become predictive in the way we help these people or help the citizen, so that they move from one career step to another. And we call it citizens in transition. You're not like working and unemployed. No, you're in constant transition within jobs. And that means lifelong learning, where we offer tools to help you understand, okay, what can you learn? What is the in which competencies can you get better? And so the whole idea is that by doing that, we avoid that people fall in the trap, as a matter of speaking, of becoming unemployed. So there is a predictivity, and we have quite an extensive battery of tools based on artificial intelligence and machine learning, which we deploy. And we have a tool called Job Reach, which really basically says to an individual who, uploads his curriculum vitae, okay, this is the jobs you can do. And with competence enlargement, with more competencies and training, you can increase your job reach. And suddenly other jobs become available for you as a person. So that is the strategic, really fundamental shift that we embark upon in VDAB.
Okay, super. We've got 8 minutes left for this panel. Only Niels goes very fast again. So I would like everybody to take out a crystal ball again and tell us, well, how do you see the near future? I mean, in government, with what's going on right now, and maybe you can touch a bit on leadership as well. What kind of leadership do we need today and in the future to manage all of this? Raoul, do you want to maybe go first?
Okay, I am a very optimist. I think we are still suffering the COVID consequences. The high prices still are produced by the lack of the supply from the producers' industries. As a result of confinement, the demand is greater nowadays. And also the hard measures decided, for example, in China to stop COVID, some of the reasons that explain how rates of inflation has increased so much. And also drove an important increment of the energy prices. Also the Ukraine's invasion by Russia produced the current moment we live now. So 2023 will be a year with no economic growth because the demand will go down. But that will permit the industry will be able to supply without the current delays we have now. And 2025, I think, will be a year with stabilized prices and then with economic growth again. So the IT sector will live very important moments that it must take advantages of very well to become a structural industry in all markets after this period of financial aid. Either we have really made a structural change in our economy, or if not, the European economic model may suffer the consequences of the lack of skilled labor and the productive improvement of emerging countries. So it's important opportunity, the unique, I think. So we have to use correctly the extra financial we receive from Next Generation funds. So if we can do currently, we max success. If not, maybe the other countries we forward us.
Okay. Thank you so much, Raoul. Paolo, you want to give your vision on how do you see the future in and maybe specifically in Italy? How is Italy going? I mean, and you have the extra challenge of political instability and one crisis, political crisis after the other as well. But please tell us more about your vision.
Yeah. So since last week we have a new government. So that's a good news. Very good news. But unfortunately, there is no longer a Minister of Innovation and Digital Transformation. That and to be honest, from my perspective, is a huge step backwards in the process of the digital transformation of the country. But I'm sure that the new government will have a plan for this. That will find a new way to manage this situation. I mean, the digital transformation. But I do not wish to be catastrophic. But we cannot hide behind a finger. We will have 2 years, two very hard years ahead of us, both in terms of economic recession and generally of global instability. The outcomes of which are still uncertain and do not allow, at least me, to represent a possible settlement in the short term. But however, I'm more optimistic when we refer to the people. Especially, I don't want to say a cliche, but Italy as performance usually performs better during crises instead of standard times, and we have seen this during the pandemic. So especially young people have a very impressive way. They answer in an impressive way, reacted in an impressive way. Well, all the restriction, all the needed during the pandemic. So I believe that we will have surprises from people, because it's where we need to foster better response to the crisis we will see in the next year. Okay. So I expect there to have very, very big surprise how people will react to all these crises. I think few of them are already popping up, especially in the war in Ukraine and what is happening also in the economic.
Super, thank you so much, Paolo. Piotr, if we can have your crystal ball readings, what do you see?
Okay, I think that we are not likely to avoid a recession, but I treat it as a natural state that comes back from time to time. From the management point of view, I think the lessons that we took during 2008 financial crisis will be crucial. I expect that we will continue to invest in innovation and optimization of the existing businesses, but it's probably that we don't invest in the expansion of the existing production capacities, and this process probably will slow down. On the other hand, the process of deglobalisation and relocation of production back to Europe may have a positive effect of our economy. And I'd like to say one sentence about the skills which we will need. So personally, I believe that we should focus on being brave and developing the ability to build a vision and gathering teams around it. Courage will be needed in making the tough decisions that always happen during crises. On the other hand, the vision will allow to unite a team around it and reduce the anxiety, which always is in our teams during crisis.
Okay. Thank you so much, Piotr, Lawrence, and then Jan, and then we are going to need to wrap up. Lawrence, what does your crystal ball say?
Well, yeah, my view on the world. It's a bit similar to what others I think are stating. I expect, and that's also maybe a self-fulfilling prophecy, there will be a recession. We don't know how big, how long, but there will be layoffs. And these layoffs could be an opportunity to retrain and re-educate people to become IT. That's the chance I see. The energy, that's very much depending on the sanctions and on the war in Ukraine. So I don't know if how long that will. It could be like in Afghanistan or the long conflicts. But of course, I hope it won't last that long, and and it won't be the same again as before. it will be an uncertain world. And I think we maybe need to get used to a less growth. We are addicted to growth in any respect. That's the thing that drives not only prosperity, but also a moderate inflation. And maybe we need to get used to an economy that doesn't grow that fast, or even at close to zero. I also expect that there will be more focus on sovereignty. So you see that already, like these globalization, which is cutting back. So we will be more local. There will be more stocks piling. There will be more locations, so we won't be dependent from one side or from one country. Also alternatives, I think it was already mentioned, to raw materials, and maybe 3D printing will be on the rise. So it will be different, and I think one of the overarching themes is it will be more polarized. That's what I see. So there will be people who can afford these energy increased prices, but there will be also and there will be people who are really IT enabled and everything digital. But there will also be people who maybe will.
Oh, and then we
yeah.
love. Oh.
Yeah. So and what does it mean from a leadership perspective? I think we need to face reality as it is. We need to stay connected with our people, with our citizens. But my personal wish would keep the true north in sight and not be distracted too much from the day-to-day, well, smaller or bigger crisis, because that makes the digital transformation of society possible.
Okay, thank you for that, Laurens. Jan.
Okay, very shortly, everything which is said is obviously correct. The key is there is a lot of uncertainty. Geopolitics, who knows? It's in the head of a few individuals, a handful of individuals who will have potentially a great impact on the world and on society. So I'm not going to comment on that. We'll see what happens. But let me just add one comment, and let's try to look at the positive side. If you see how society is responding, it's difficult, but we are responding. I've worked 10 years in the energy sector before I took the job which I have now. But with the crisis of energy, we're now doing, we're accelerating, let's say in 2 to 3 years, which otherwise would have taken 15 years. So if you talk about climate impact, etc., what we're doing now during the crisis is really a very, long term will have positive impacts. The last thing is I do believe very strongly in the importance of data, and using of data to solve problems of really human problems, world problems. I mean, data can help us there. And then my final comment on leadership. My son and my daughter, they do not talk anymore about a digital camera. So I would argue, why do we talk about digital leaders? It's going to be leaders with digital skills. You're going to have them, everyone. So digital leadership for me is something strange. It's leaders with digital skills. And of course, we're going to need them. And we're privileged because we're kind of ahead. We have been grown up a bit in the digital world. And we have to combine that knowledge and that skill set and competency sets with what each leader should be, which is inspiring, painting the picture, be bold, brave, humble, love your people. And I think we have great leaders. So that's my final comment on that one.
Okay, nice way to end this panel discussion. Super interesting. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jan, Laurens, Paolo, Piotr, and Raul, and also Niels for helping me to moderate that. We're going to throw you out of the screen now, and we're going to announce who of you will be the winner of the Digital Leader of the Year award. So let me add this slide here. There we go. So, Niels, we have 5 very fine finalists for the Government European Digital Leader of the Year award.
And I have to say, once again, these 5 are the reason why we include this category in the first place. The public sector has so many amazingly accomplished digital leaders that can serve as role models for all sectors. And once again, this year's group that you have here is proof of that. There is fantastic and important digital leadership going on in the public sector. And I'm so glad that we showcase them like we did this year.
Okay, super. And so first we're going to announce the runner-up. Again, it was the jury has voted. It was close again. And
Yes.
so that's why we will definitely mention the runner-up, and then we will announce the winner. And so the runner-up, who has been very instrumental in making a big transformation in his organization, and is very, very data-driven and does a great job. So congratulations, Jan Dobeny, to be the runner-up of the European Digital Leader of the Year in the government sector. And so without further ado, we are going to announce the winner. And the winner of the European Digital Leader of the Year award in the government category is Laurens Visser of the Dutch Central Government. Niels, tell us, why has Laurens won this award?
Again, the jury really highlighted a whole variety of aspects for why they voted and allocated so many points to Laurens. I'll just highlight two aspects. One is his leadership style and how he focuses on and is focused on really being a connector of people by listening. And I think that's a critical aspect of leadership going forward and helps explain his effectiveness. Also, transparency. He really focused on introducing greater transparency across a variety of aspects of the Dutch central government. And that's how he's succeeded in building trust of the citizens in the government. And this, in an increasingly polarized world, is going to be essential for going forward. So those are just a selection of some of his accomplishments.
Laurens, if you unmute yourself, please tell us a little bit what goes through you right now, but more importantly, how do you look at this award?
Well, I must say, I didn't expect it, of course, because it's a very complicated job, of course, and sometimes I feel I'm not really accomplishing things. It goes slowly, and I need a lot of pollering, so I need a lot of meetings. But I'm really honored to be. So thank you a lot, and especially between these other finalists. And I see they're very, very accomplished. They are doing a great job, and so I'm really honored. And I see it as a recognition, not only for myself, personal, but also to the profession and the difficult roles we have as CIOs, as CDOs, as CTOs, as digital leaders. So yeah, I'm really thrilled. So thanks a lot.
Okay.
Really. Congratulations.
Yeah. Congratulations, Laurens, to you and your team, of course, of the great work that you've done and the strategy that you're putting in place now for the complete Dutch government, together with your 18 colleagues. And so we look forward to getting all the winners together in next year. After that, we have also awarded the winners in B2B and B2C in February. So congratulations, Laurens, and see you soon. And so with that, we have come almost to the end of the conference of today. I just want to thank Niels for being with us today. I would like to thank all panelists that were with us today and that did a great job in explaining their strategies and visions on how to navigate the perfect storm. I would like to thank our team, who has been working months on preparing all this, has been hard work to bringing all this together, creating the videos, organizing the conference, and so on. So thank you so much to the CIONET team to have this organized. And of course, thank you to all the people that attended this conference. A last couple of announcements. Make sure that you put in your agenda the 9th of November for our launch of the Digital Leadership Report of Nash Squared in collaboration with CIONET. For your agenda, on the 7th of December, we are going to talk about the race to net zero, together with BT and Palo Alto and some top digital leaders again. So where we're going to talk about the role of the digital leaders in driving the sustainability agenda. And then, of course, the 1st of February next year, we will bring together 2 more very fine panels of digital leaders in B2B and in B2C. And we're going to discuss the hot topics of that moment. And last but not least, make sure to get your copy of the CIONET cookbook before it's gone. We're working hard on the next edition already. And so if you want to register for the CIONET events, just go to cionet.com/events and you find the overview. You want to download our reports, go to cionet.com/reports. If you want to watch the long format videos that we've done of all the finalists in government and finance that you have seen today, go to cionet.tv and you can check them out. Also available in podcast as well. And with that, we're coming to the end. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great afternoon and see you soon again.